4-carat magic in the air. Gave you all I had and you tossed it in the trash. I'm the don't believe me, just watch. Just the way you are.
And you had an incident yourself last year. I know you don't want to talk about it at length, but I want to ask you just really what you learned from that. You were found with cocaine in Las Vegas and so on. And for you at the time, I mean, potentially a big problem for you. But I think you dealt with it in a very mature way. What's your feeling about it, looking back on it now?
I don't live my life with regrets, and I don't dwell on anything. I feel like it happened. It must have happened for a reason. I hope that I'm not here today because of what happened then. I hope I'm here today because of my achievement and because of my music.
What if one of the biggest pop stars of an entire generation nearly threw his entire career away in a hotel bathroom? And what if everything the world thought it knew about him, his identity, his past, his rise to fame, was far more complicated, far more fragile, and far more human than anyone imagined? This is the story behind Bruno Mars, the electrifying performer who conquered the world with charm, grit, and unmatched talent, yet came terrifyingly close to losing everything before he even had the chance to shine. This is the chapter the industry remembers, the moment fans can't forget, and the truth Bruno himself once called a life-changing wake-up call. But to understand what really happened that night in Las Vegas and how it almost destroyed him, we need to go back to the beginning. Before he was Bruno Mars, global superstar, Grammy magnate, and one of the most recognizable performers alive, he was Peter Gene Hernandez, a child growing up in Honolulu, Hawaii, in a home where music wasn't a hobby, it was oxygen. Born on October 8, 1985, Bruno entered the world surrounded by rhythm, harmony, and cultural layers deeper than the industry ever manages to capture. His father, Peter Hernandez, brought Puerto Rican and Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. His mother, Bernadette Bayo, carried Filipino and Spanish roots. Their home blended Latin percussion, island melodies, soul records, and old-school showmanship. Music wasn't just background noise, it was the language of the family. And in this house, Bruno wasn't asked whether he wanted to perform. Performing was simply who he was. His mother saw it first. When Peter could barely talk, he was already imitating Elvis Presley, wobbling knees, swinging hips, and copying the King's voice with shocking accuracy. Most parents might have laughed at a toddler pretending to be a rock icon, but Bernadette saw something rare, something bright, something destined. She nurtured it. By age 4, little Bruno was performing professionally in his father's Elvis tribute show, Viva Elvis, wearing a tiny white jumpsuit and grabbing the spotlight the second his feet hit the stage. He was so confident, so fearless, that his father started calling him Bruno, after professional wrestler Bruno Sammartino, a man known for strength and swagger. The name stuck, the attitude stuck, and the talent kept growing. As Bruno got older, he absorbed every influence he could find. Elvis, Michael Jackson, James Brown, Prince, The Police, Stevie Wonder. He didn't just listen to them, he dissected them, studying every run, every move, every breath, every choice. While most kids watch cartoons, Bruno watched legends. But as beautiful and musically rich as Hawaii was, it had limits. For someone like Bruno, someone with ambition that couldn't fit inside an island, there was only one destination: Los Angeles. At 17 years old, Bruno packed a bag, grabbed his guitar, and moved to California with just $100 in his pocket. No apartment, no job, no safety net. Just a dream so big it could barely fit inside him. But LA wasn't a welcoming place. Not for someone who didn't fit in any of the industry's marketable categories. Labels told him he looked too ethnically ambiguous, too hard to brand, too easy to misunderstand, too unusual for pop, too pop for R&B, too R&B for rock. A mix the industry didn't know how to package. He was rejected repeatedly. He slept on floors, crashed on couches, pawned gear, and played poker to pay rent. He auditioned constantly, sang endlessly, wrote obsessively, and still heard no at every turn. In 2006, he finally signed to Motown Records, and then just as quickly got dropped. Most artists would have quit. Most artists did quit. But instead of giving up, Bruno adapted. He teamed up with Philip Lawrence and Ari Levine, forming the production trio The Smeezingtons, and started writing for other artists. Suddenly, doors began to open. They wrote Right Round for Flo Rida. They co-wrote Wavin' Flag, one of the biggest global anthems of 2009. Their big break came when they created Nothing on You with B.O.B., a song that exploded instantly, with Bruno's voice defining the entire track. Labels that once ignored him were suddenly calling. His vocals were everywhere. His sound was undeniable. He was no longer the kid being rejected. He was the talent nobody could ignore. He signed with Atlantic Records. He had a debut album scheduled. His first single had just dropped. Everything was finally coming together. And then came the night that almost destroyed everything. September 19th, 2010. The Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Las Vegas. A bathroom, a moment of weakness, and a decision that nearly ended the future of a man who had spent his whole life fighting to be seen. Within hours, Bruno Mars, 24 years old, newly signed, newly rising, would be in handcuffs, facing felony drug charges, watching headlines label him a cautionary tale before he even had the chance to truly shine. And this is where the story begins to twist. Before Bruno Mars became a global superstar, he was a young artist standing in a Las Vegas bathroom, staring at the reflection of a man who had everything to lose.
First song that I ever released, and Ellen was the first person that allowed us to sing that song on her platform, and that song became #1 very shortly after that performance.
I can spot talent, and I mean, really, seriously though, you were such an amazing performer, and now what you're doing with Silk Sonic with Anderson .Paak is brilliant.
Come on.
Congratulations on the 4 Grammys.
Oh, thanks.
That was,
look how happy we are.
as he said, in the business is known as a clean sweep.
Clean sweep.
And we went to go see you. Twitch and I saw you in Vegas, and y'all are unbelievable. And now you've added dates to it?
Yes.
That night, September 19th, 2010, police found him with 2.6 grams of cocaine. The arrest was immediate. The charges were serious, and the timing could not have been worse. His debut album was just weeks away. His first real shot at superstardom was finally within reach. And suddenly, everything he had built was collapsing right in front of him. The headlines were ruthless. Bruno Mars, drug bust, threatens rising career. New pop star could face felony charges. He was terrified. In a 2013 GQ interview, Bruno admitted he lied to police that night, claiming it was his first time using drugs, something he later acknowledged wasn't true. He said he was scared, embarrassed, and desperate to make the whole thing disappear. But the thing about life-changing mistakes is that they don't disappear. They force you to confront who you are and who you want to become. Instead of jail time, Bruno accepted a plea deal. $2,000 fine, 200 hours of community service, mandatory drug counseling, 1 year of probation. If he stayed clean for a year, his record would be wiped, and for the first time in a long time, Bruno understood the weight of consequences. He once said that the arrest wasn't the end of his life, but it absolutely could have been if he didn't change. He knew this was his one chance to turn everything around. So, while the world debated whether his career was over, Bruno did the only thing he knew how to do. He worked. Harder than ever. Just weeks after the arrest, on October 4th, 2010, he released Doo-Wops and Hooligans, the album that would define him. It wasn't just a success, it was a global takeover.
Me and Andy met on tour in 2017, right? Yeah, we was on tour together, and then from there we started hanging out and listening to music. He put me on some music, I put him on some music, and then we went to the studio a couple times, wrote some songs that ended up on Ventura, right? Right. And this quarantine, I called Andy up, said come to the studio, and kind of snowballed into something big.
Just the Way You Are went to #1 around the world. Grenade became an instant anthem. The Lazy song dominated radio and memes. The album went multi-platinum and earned Bruno his first Grammy nominations. Suddenly, the kid who nearly threw everything away was becoming one of the most important new artists in pop music. Between 2010 and 2012, Bruno toured relentlessly. His live performances stunned audiences. He danced with James Brown's energy, sang with Stevie Wonder's warmth, and carried himself with the charm of Elvis. People didn't just like watching Bruno Mars perform, they felt honored to witness it. But while his star was rising behind the scenes, Bruno was dealing with something far more painful than fame or pressure. His mother, Bernadette Bayo, the woman who nurtured his talent, who believed in him when nobody else did, was battling serious health issues. She was his foundation, his inspiration, his world. On June 1st, 2013, tragedy struck. Bernadette died suddenly from a brain aneurysm. She was just 55 years old. Bruno was shattered. He canceled shows, disappeared from the public eye, and withdrew into silence. When he finally spoke about her death, he said the world simply felt empty without her. He said he carried her with him every time he stepped on stage. And that grief, that unbearable heartbreak, reshaped everything he created afterward. Later that year, in December 2012, Bruno released Unorthodox Jukebox, an album that expanded his sound and silenced any industry critics who still doubted him. Locked Out of Heaven channeled the reggae rock fire of The Police. When I Was Your Man became one of the most emotional ballads of the decade. Treasure brought 80s funk back into the mainstream. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and eventually hit number 1. It won Bruno the Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Album in 2014. He performed at the Grammys with Sting smiling proudly in the audience, a moment that symbolized Bruno's arrival into the League of Greats. But nothing would prepare him for what came next. In January 2014, Bruno was invited to headline Super Bowl 48, the biggest stage in America, the most watched musical performance on television. Over 115 million people tuned in as Bruno delivered a halftime show so flawless, so high energy, so explosive that critics called it one of the greatest halftime performances ever. No gimmicks, no shock tactics, no superstar guests, just pure talent. It was the moment he went from rising star to legend in the making. But Bruno wasn't done, not even close. That same year, he met producer Mark Ronson, a partnership that would change music history. They entered the studio, and within a single session, they created a track that would redefine modern funk. Uptown Funk wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural earthquake. The horns, the groove, the attitude, the swagger. It dominated the Billboard Hot 100, spending 14 consecutive weeks at number 1, tying one of the longest runs in chart history. It won Record of the Year and Best Pop Duo Group Performance at the Grammys.
My whole life, I feel like I've been struggling to do what I want to do, and that was music. And it just wasn't easy. I had to go through some things, but you can't regret it because I might not be here if it wasn't for that journey that I had to take.
Bruno performed it everywhere, including a legendary appearance on Ellen where he danced through the crowd, creating one of the most watched talk show moments ever. The song didn't just cement Bruno Mars as a superstar, it made him unstoppable. After the explosion of Uptown Funk, Bruno Mars didn't just become a superstar, he became a cultural force. The industry wasn't debating whether he was talented anymore. The conversation shifted to something bigger. Was Bruno Mars the last true showman of his generation? In November 2016, he answered that question with an entire era, 24K Magic. The album wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a full universe, a rebirth, a celebration of funk, soul, R&B, and 90s new jack swing, wrapped in Bruno's undeniable modern swagger. The title track, 24K Magic, hit like a jolt of electricity. That's What I Like became a sensual, smooth, chart-dominating anthem that showed just how versatile Bruno's voice really was, and finesse, especially the 2018 remix featuring Cardi B, instantly revived 90s culture. From the color palettes to the choreography inspired by In Living Color. Bruno didn't release singles, he released moments. And in 2018, those moments paid off. At the Grammy Awards, Bruno swept all 6 categories he was nominated for, including Album of the Year, Record of the Year, and Song of the Year. It was a clean sweep, something incredibly rare in modern music. But immense success inevitably brings criticism. That same year, an online debate erupted over whether Bruno Mars was guilty of cultural appropriation. Critics argued that Bruno's mixed-race ambiguity allowed him to profit from black musical traditions with fewer barriers. Supporters countered with equal passion, pointing to Bruno's lifelong reverence for black artists, James Brown, Michael Jackson, Prince, the Isley Brothers, and his deep history of acknowledging them at every opportunity. Bruno addressed the conversation calmly. He said his music was never meant to take, only to honor the giants who inspired him. And despite the noise, the overwhelming majority of fans and musicians stood behind him. Still, the debate reinforced something important. Bruno Mars wasn't just making music, he was shaping culture, and culture always fights back.
Before anyone knew who I was producing music for other artists. And I had to be able to produce for a rock artist, a hip-hop artist, all kinds of different music. So it's my job to study all kinds of music.
Then came 2020. The world shut down, tours ended, concerts vanished, artists retreated, but Bruno Mars took the pause as an opportunity, a chance to create something completely different. He called Anderson .Paak, a musician just as obsessed with groove, soul, funk, and live instrumentation as Bruno himself. Both artists had toured together. Both came from musical families. Both worshiped the same legends. So during lockdown, with no distractions, they went into the studio and didn't come out until they had magic. Bootsy Collins, the legendary funk icon, heard their music and gave them a name. Silk Sonic. Their first single, Leave the Door Open, dropped in March 2021 and instantly felt timeless, smooth, romantic, intimate, like a love song from another era. It hit number 1. It dominated TikTok, radio, live performances. It brought lush harmonies and emotional softness back into mainstream music. Their full album, An Evening with Silk Sonic, arrived in November 2021 with tracks like Smoking Out the Window, Skate, and After Last Night, songs that felt like they were born in the 1970s and teleported into today. At the 2022 Grammy Awards, Silk Sonic won all 4 categories they were nominated for, including Record of the Year and Song of the Year. Once again, Bruno Mars proved he could adapt, evolve, shapeshift, and still dominate. Meanwhile, his Las Vegas residency at Park MGM became one of the hottest tickets in America. Every show sold out. Every night was a masterclass in pure showmanship. Fans described the experience the same way, like watching Michael Jackson, James Brown, and Prince in one performer. No lip syncing, no shortcuts, just real vocals, real instruments, real charisma. Bruno Mars wasn't just a pop star, he was keeping old school showmanship alive in a generation that forgot what live performance should feel like. But superstardom always attracts rumors. In March 2024, a story began circulating online. One claiming that Bruno owed $50 million in gambling debt to MGM Resorts. The internet ran with it. Comment sections exploded. Headlines turned it into a frenzy. Hours later, MGM Resorts issued a firm statement. The story was completely false, fabricated, nonsense. They called Bruno a valued partner and publicly shut down the rumor. Still, the damage was done, a reminder that in modern celebrity culture, lies spread faster than truth. But Bruno didn't say a word. No Instagram posts, no statements, no interviews. He didn't need to. And then, just as the gambling rumor faded, a new headline took over. In January 2025, multiple outlets confirmed that Bruno Mars and model Jessica Caban had ended their relationship after nearly 14 years together. Their breakup wasn't dramatic. No cheating scandals, no public fights, no social media fallout. It was described as mutual and private. Their relationship had started long before Bruno reached global superstardom. They had survived tours, fame, pressure, and schedules that would break most couples. But in 2025, their paths finally diverged. Fans were devastated, but insiders described something else, something quietly powerful happening behind the scenes. Bruno had thrown himself into the studio, deeply, obsessively, like he hadn't done since before he became Bruno Mars. He was searching for something, maybe reinvention, maybe healing, maybe the next breakthrough. But whatever it was, everyone who worked with him agreed on one thing: he was on the edge of another major evolution. As 2025 unfolds, Bruno Mars stands at a crossroads. Not a crisis, not a downfall, but a quiet turning point. The kind that only the greatest artists experience when they've conquered everything and must decide what comes next. After the end of his 14-year relationship with Jessica Caban, sources close to Bruno say he retreated into the one place where he has always been most honest, most vulnerable, and most fearless: the studio. Producers who have worked with him in the past year describe the same energy. Bruno is experimenting again, pushing boundaries, rebuilding his sound from the ground up. Some say the new material feels like a return to his retro roots. Others say he's blending soul with futuristic production. Still others claim he's working on a Silk Sonic follow-up that will take their 70s-inspired sound to an entirely new direction. Nobody knows for sure what's coming, but everyone agrees on one thing: Bruno Mars is creating something big. And while his creative evolution continues, his financial empire grows in the background. His premium rum brand, Selvaray, has become one of the fastest expanding celebrity spirits in the world, gaining new distributors across Europe, Asia, and South America. Fans share the bottles on social media. Bars place it on their top shelves. The brand reflects Bruno perfectly: smooth, stylish, and instantly recognizable. His estimated net worth, around $175 million, continues to rise, fueled by touring, business ventures, and one of the strongest catalogs of hits in the last 20 years. His Las Vegas residency is extended repeatedly due to overwhelming demand. Night after night, he steps on stage and audiences witness something rare: a performer who sings every note, a musician who plays every instrument, an entertainer who doesn't need gimmicks, a showman in the truest sense of the word. But behind the spotlight and success, Bruno remains grounded in the people who shaped him: his family, his siblings Jamie, Tiara, Tahiti, Presley, and his brother Eric. continue performing, supporting each other, and honoring the legacy of their mother, Bernadette. Her presence still guides Bruno. Her influence still shapes his choices. Her memory still lives in every note he sings. Film and television haven't been Bruno's main focus, but his appearances in Rio 2, Saturday Night Live, and major music documentaries keep him present in pop culture beyond the charts. His 2 Super Bowl halftime show performances in 2014 and 2016 with Coldplay and Beyonce remain iconic moments of modern entertainment. And while the cultural appropriation debate resurfaces occasionally on social media, fans consistently point to Bruno's deep respect for Black artists, his diverse heritage, and his lifelong dedication to honoring the musical giants who built the foundations he stands on. The conversation may come and go, but Bruno's music and the intention behind it speaks louder than any commentary ever could. Through every peak and every challenge, one truth has remained constant. Bruno Mars is an artist who refuses to be boxed in, a performer who reinvents without losing himself, a musician who blends eras, genres, and cultures seamlessly, a storyteller whose songs turn into memories people carry for years. He is one of the defining artists of his generation, not because he has avoided mistakes, but because he has overcome them. Not because his journey has been perfect, but because it has been human. From a tiny stage in Honolulu, to a bathroom in Las Vegas that nearly changed everything, to global superstardom, Grammy sweeps, sold-out tours, iconic performances, and historic collaborations. Bruno Mars has lived a life filled with triumphs, losses, reinvention, and resilience. And now, as he steps deeper into 2025, fans around the world wait, eagerly, curiously, passionately, to see what his next chapter will sound like. Will he return with a Silk Sonic masterpiece? Or will he deliver a bold new solo era? Will he reinvent himself again? Or remind the world why he's still the king of modern showmanship? Whatever he creates next, one thing is certain. The world will be watching, the industry will be listening, and the story of Bruno Mars is far from over. This is Hoodline Gossip. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and tell us in the comments. What do you think Bruno Mars' next era will be?